passed away. And that was hard. And then when I was 8 years old, my mother remarried. I was really excited to have a stepfather. I was really excited to be roped in and attached to a whole new family and a whole new tradition, in addition to the family I had come from. And in fact, the day that they were married, I can remember they were married at St. Mary's Cathedral in Saginaw, Michigan. A whole new tradition. I was a Lutheran, right? Being married in a Catholic church. And I can remember as I sat there in my maroon tuxedo. Yeah. I can remember looking up at the wonderful tradition that I was about to be married into as I looked at the lovely stained glass windows that adorn that church. And I looked at the V columns and the flying buttresses and just the lovely tradition that is medieval construction of the cathedral. And I can remember thinking, wow, it's almost like being in the presence of God in here. It's so lovely. And then that Protestant in me started thinking, this must cost a fortune. That Protestant in me looked at all those saints that were on the windows, and I started thinking, St. Peter and St. Paul, and there's Mary, and named this whole church after Mary. Oh my goodness, what an anathema. These people have it so wrong. And the scripture that we read today started to sink in a little bit more. They didn't even read it that day at the wedding, obviously. But, yeah, all of a sudden, that problem that the Sadducees had was my problem. Oh, man. Whose wife is she? You see, let's have that first one blank soon. Maybe this will save me from going down the wrong path here. You see, I was like one of those Sadducees in that moment where I was thinking about whose wife is my mom going to be? I was like one of those Sadducees who say there is no resurrection. You live, you die, you pay taxes, and you die, kid. There is no resurrection. This is all there is to life. I was like one of those who say there is no resurrection. I was like one of those Sadducees who couldn't even couldn't even understand or recognize the world as so much more than just you live, you pay taxes, and then you die. Who couldn't recognize that the world was this place where, even though it was temporal, and you have to have daylight savings time, you've got to save time. But even though it's temporal and you got to have daylight savings time, that the world of the eternal can break through every once in a while, and we can get a taste of heaven. But I was like a Sadducee on that day, and I was scratching my head, and I was trying to wonder, whose wife is she going to be? And when people can't even get their minds around resurrection, they start to live into the worldview of scarcity rather than abundance. They start to live into the worldview of temporal realities rather than eternal realities. And so those Sadducees, they couldn't even see marriage in its eternal reality. Let's have that next one. For the Sadducees, marriage was just a legal provision for death. Oh, wow, what romance. A legal provision for death. A problem of scarcity rather than a joy of abundance. For a Sadducee who doesn't believe in the resurrection, they would look at this levirate marriage, this law of Moses, this law that the people of Israel would follow. And they would look at this as a matter of property retention in a family. You know, it's about how many toys you build up. I've been visiting with house churches, and they're saying we're really trying to overcome the gospel of prosperity. And we're trying to help people realize that life isn't all about, you know, the one who dies with the most toys wins. And yet, levirate marriage was designed around that. They say, okay, well, they have 7 brothers. And the first one is allowed to get married. And then as the heir of all that the family has. And the first one's allowed to get married. And if he doesn't produce an heir, then we got a problem. All the things, all the toys, all the stuff we've accumulated is going to, well, we'll lose it out of the family. And so brother number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, you can't marry until your older brother produces an heir. You got to stay in the bullpen. Okay, I've been watching too much baseball. It's over now. You got to stay in the bullpen. You got to be ready for relief. And so this is this levirate marriage, and this is what the Sadducees are talking about. So, what about this resurrection? You're preaching about the resurrection, Jesus, but what about this? I mean, what does it mean for this law code of levirate marriage? What's going on? You got 7 brothers. You got 1 bride. This is scarcity. See the worldview of scarcity there? Even if the Sadducees are willing to say, okay, yeah, there might be something before the lights go out, or after the lights go out, and we go somewhere, but still, we're operating on a worldview of scarcity. Whose wife is she? And as an 8-year-old in a burgundy tuxedo with frills and that whole deal, I was scratching my head, asking the same question, whose wife is she? And so I can remember near the end of the service, or at the end of that service, feeling very, very guilty. Because up until that moment, I thought the plan would be for heaven. Is that Dad would be waiting there for us. And we'd all get to heaven, and we'd have the same house that we had lived in. And we'd all live together in that same house, Mom, Dad, and Sister Kim and me. I wanted back what we lost. But that's it. That's all I wanted. I wanted back what we lost. And that was my understanding of heaven. It was like the Sadducees' understanding of heaven, wasn't it? And now I felt like I had, cheated. I'd been a party to this wedding where now there's 2. Oh boy, that's not going to work out. Got back to the end of the church, the back of the church, and there's that handshaking business, right, that has to happen. And the bride, the couple, and the bride and groom were shaking hands and greeting their guests, and I was part of the line. After all, I was in that dang burgundy tuxedo. And I sort of snuck off to the end of the line and snuck away and into a restroom that was off to the back. And I snuck away into that restroom. I closed the door. Crook. I felt so guilty. Sorry. It was my job to hold it together. I ran the water, splashed water in my face. I got the tears out of my eyes. And then I heard a door open, and someone was behind me. I felt a presence. I cannot, to this day, know, I can't remember who it was that came in. Are you okay? No, I'm not okay. I'm guilty. I've blown it. I'm not okay. It's going to be all right. Your dad's happy. Because your mom is happy. It's going to be all right. We don't understand here, but we're going to understand it there, he says. We're going to understand it there. And you're going to see things in the big picture. Now grasp onto the joy. Grasp onto the joy of heaven, he says. Leave your tears in here and go and celebrate a wedding. Go and celebrate a glimpse of heaven. Because two people love each other like we'll all love each other in heaven. I still don't remember who said those words. Maybe it was just an angel. Maybe there was nobody. The presents left, and I was able to get myself together, put my smile back on my face, and really take hold of the good news. And I was thankful on that day, sisters and brothers. I was thankful on that day that so many people earned all they could, saved all they could, and gave all they could so that sanctuary could be there, so that it could build that St. Mary's Cathedral, as beautiful as it was. I was thankful on that day that those people earned all they could, saved all they could, gave all they could, so that that bathroom could be there for me. They ordered their lives not on a worldview of scarcity, but on a worldview of abundance. They ordered their lives not on the worldview of there's not enough to go around, but it's all God's and we have to share it to go around. They ordered their lives that way so that they could love not only their spouses, but also their enemies in the world. They could love them with that kind of deep love. They could love not only their enemies, but also an 8-year-old boy who they never met in their entire lives. So that they could create a sanctuary of a restroom for him, so he could break down and cry, and then be built back up in the fullness of heaven, and understand, last one, that God is not the God of the dead, but He is the God of the living. And they all celebrate, even when we just get a glimpse of the place where they get to live every day. Amen. Your challenge this week, if you choose to accept it, make a provision for the resurrection. We oftentimes make provisions for our death. Don't worry about that. Make a provision for life. Make a provision for life. Appreciate the generosity of the saints. It's not too hard. You might just gaze at some of these wonderful stained glass windows that we have here, but appreciate the generosity of the saints that go before us. Be generous to someone you don't even know. Amen.